Hey everybody, Ryan here. Welcome back to Plague Scythe Studios and back to Mercuriall Ampbox. As today we have yet another new virtual amplifier head release with the most coveted XVX 6163. Even prior to Mercurial putting out Ampbox as their all-in-one release platform, they've been on a bit of an iconic high-gain tear, if you will, as you have releases like the Re-Axis, which, just like all the other prior releases, have been a standalone product before, and things like the Rectifier, which was the first expansion to Ampbox. We're into tones that perhaps other plug-in vendors have already covered. So when Mercurial told me that they were going to release a 5150 style plugin, it made me scratch my head a little, going to be honest, because how many times can we do this? How many dances can we dance with this style of circuit where there is any modicum of surprise left? Well, as it turns out, counterintuitively enough, there are a number of surprises underneath the incognito fascia of this type of amplifier. Not only because when Mercurial gets their hands on a circuit, it sounds incredibly authentic to the real thing, in my experience, but also because seemingly no other vendor on the market actually goes after this particular type of 5150. I actually hold the opinion that the 6505 plus / 5152 in the PV era was the best sounding, and when it comes to the EVH line, I'm not really crazy about any one amplifier circuit. I think there's cool things about the EL34 variants for certain artists, and I really have always had a soft spot for the blue channel on all of them. But the complete ubiquity that the red channel especially has slathered upon contemporary metal has made me almost bored of a lot of modern guitar tones, not because it's the fault of the amplifier, but because it sounds so good and it is so easy to dial in that everyone just says, "Oh, to hell with it, I want to use this," instead of the tube screamer through a rectifier that everyone else has done, or the other myriad of almost meme-worthy amplifier rigs at this point. So I understand it, but as a result, kind of shied away from this whole era of 5150s. But I always have been intrigued by this particular variant, the Stealth. Not only are the comparatively understated aesthetics more attractive to me personally compared to the other lines of 5150 amplifiers, but every demonstration I've heard of them makes it sound like all the amplifier channels are going for max versatility within that range that they can offer. As in, the red channel is the most red channel of all red channels when it comes to the 5150 sound. The blue channel can go from anywhere from the crunch sounds of the early 5150s to its own unique thing, in fact, completely negating the need for the lead red channel for a lot of players. And likewise, the green channel can go from sparkling, crystal clean to full-blown Marshall Plexi, even light JCM 800 crunch. And that's exactly what this does, and it excels at it. As a result, I've been exceedingly impressed with the blue channel, as it does basically all those sounds that I really like out of the blue channel models in the Axe Effects platforms, and the green channel I've never really explored those nearly as much, and perhaps there are some modifications to this one specifically for this model, but holy cow. Uh, I think if you're the kind of player that never needs a clean channel, you are going to love this amplifier because you can have such a wonderful crunch rhythm lead setup, or a genty, more full-blown distortion on one, a more liquid, sorry distortion on another, and then kind of an edge of breakup to higher-end crunch sound on the green channel. We'll get into all those features, but needless to say, you're not going to find the old-school 5150 or 5152 crunch lead setup, and where the clean channel is kind of an afterthought, even though it does sound pretty good. This isn't just a knockoff Fender clean circuit. This isn't just a knockoff higher in Plexi or JCM 800 style circuit on the blue channel. This is a uniquely 5150 sound. Before I get too lost in the minutia on 6163 though, first of all, I want to give a huge thanks to Mercuriall Audio for sending this over pre-release. That way I could jam on it and give some feedback and of course make some presets. So greatly appreciate that. Thoroughly enjoyed my time with it. But also, I wanted to talk about Ampbox as a whole earlier on in the video, which is something I normally relegate towards the end, because ultimately 6163, just like Rectifier, it is an expansion upon this Ampbox platform. And as we get further into this, I often start criticizing more and more of the features that are outside of the scope of the amplifier proper. Now, they've done some really great work, including free things to all Ampbox owners as we've gone through the life cycle of these releases. So for instance, they've added a distortion pedal with the DS1. This release includes some new 6163 special impulse responses, which I will be using in some of my presets. Of course, I'll continue to use some of the other existing Max Morton impulse responses on some of these presets. But one thing that I am starting to feel fatigued or hampered by is the wet effects, the chorus, the delay, the reverb. This is something that I've spoken about at length before, but I was at the point last time, and I think I've continued to be at the point, that I don't think there should be any more amplifier releases until these are looked at. I feel we're now at a point where there is such a gulf in quality between the dry tones provided by the EQs and the amplifiers and the overdrive pedals versus what this delay and reverb engine is capable of. I really like the chorus, always have. I think it's a lovely little CE1, CE2 style thing. But I know there's going to be other players out there that want, maybe a flanger tone or a phaser tone. And it doesn't have to be the craziest thing in the world, or model every single, Boss version or, Electro-Harmonix version of their flanger, but just something different, something that will add some level of comprehensive, modulation thing to this platform, because otherwise these kind of are starting to feel like just tacked on effects just to have them. And one can make the argument, yeah, you can always add on stuff after the fact, but why have Ampbox to begin with then? Why have these wet effects in the box if you are just expecting people to go outside of the box and continue their signal chain with other plugins? I do think there are other competitors in the VST market that are doing a better job with this when they have an all-in-one. I'm not saying I expect, 16 models in each one, but I've been asking about this for the better part of, a couple years at this point, 3 or 4 releases, and there seems to be no attention paid to the delay, reverb, or chorus. For example, one of my presets is trying to cop the sounds of one prominent 5150 style amplifier user, especially in the 90s and early 2000s, that is awash with delay and reverb, and I got it to be usable, but it's not the sound I was really going for, and these absolutely would not be my first pick to emulate this kind of tone. And again, this kind of sounds like a first world problem, right? Because there's plenty of great free delays and reverbs out there, but what is the point of having this all-in-one comprehensive suite where I can share a preset, send it to someone that also owns this stuff, and just be able to pull it up if you have to go outside to get better sounds? So if this were a case where the amplifiers didn't sound very good to begin with, this wouldn't even be a thought, right? But there is now, I feel, a pretty large gulf between just how amazing sounding these amps are versus what the other effects are capable of. And not all of them. Like I said, I think what's in here for the overdrives and distortions is a really great start. Of course, love to see more in the future, but it's totally not a bottleneck. The parametric and graphic EQ, all that stuff, wonderful. But we got to do something here soon about the delay and reverb, because it is starting to grate on me. Back to the 6163 itself, though. As far as control schemes goes, this is undoubtedly the most streamlined of all the Mercurial releases to date, as you basically have gain, bass, middle, treble, master volume per channel, or low, middle, high for the tone stack. And you have a presence in depth control in the power amp, which on the real amplifier is per channel, but for this, it's just one set. But it's already per channel because you can use presets, so it doesn't really count. As far as out of place abnormalities or switches goes, there's really not a whole lot going on versus something like Euphoria or Triaxis, but you do have this little SC switch on channel 3, the red lead channel. And at first I thought, okay, maybe there's like a gain stage mod or a potentiometer mod, just like we saw on Rectifier. But as far as I can tell, this is actually changing the entire preamplifier on that particular channel, where S, I presume, is the stealth mode, the one that is, normally packaged with this amplifier. It is extremely high gain, even on the lower to mid gain range. It's extremely slicey. A lot of low content has been cut out. It almost sounds processed in a lot of ways to my ears, in the sense that it is just so perfectly tamed at every frequency range that it almost sounds fake in some ways. The C mode, on the other hand, I would almost say stands for chunk, because while it's not wildly different, going back and forth between the two, especially when you have no pedals in the equation, you can hear a lot of fundamental, almost Marshall Soldano flavor in that C mode. Some of those tubby and congested low mids that you hear in some of those circuits are definitely present here. There's far less filtering in the pre-distortion gain stages, and overall it just has a more vintage vibe. If you're going to be stacking pedals up anyway on something that is only tuned, say, as low as C standard, I would give that mode a shot, because it might be more in line with some of those more classic 5150 sounds. But for the contemporary whatever metal, at this point it doesn't even matter. Hell, just regular hard rock, a lot of people are going to want to switch back to the S mode. But I do encourage you to try both. They both have their place for sure. All the other channels basically do as I spoke about before, where they are super versatile. The blue channel can go anywhere from 80s rock onwards. The green channel can go, honestly, from 60s rock onwards, depending on what guitar you plug into it. You have a Telecaster or a Stratocaster on the, those honky settings, you're going to get a honky telly through a plexi kind of sound. I wouldn't expect Bassman or overdriven Fender Princeton tones, but that's not really what this amplifier is going for, and I think that really sums it up. It is the quintessential rock and metal amplifier, depending on which channel you use. So in usual fashion, Mercurial Audio has once again released a product that at first glance appears to be almost redundant, as if there's not enough 5150 style plugins, right? Or there's not enough rectifiers, or maybe there's plenty of Mark IV sounding amplifiers out there to where you don't necessarily need the re-axis. But you dive a little deeper, you listen to what they have to offer, and you see that not only is this different and more streamlined or more poignant when it comes to what they're trying to achieve in this particular class of amplifier, but it just sounds better to me than all other 5150 models I've tried, at being the 5150. Of course, there are other good models out there that are maybe tweaked and they sound good, but if you're looking for that particular amp, I don't really have any objections to recommending this one compared to the, what is it, $1,800 50-watt stealth at this point. Kind of a no-brainer, especially compared to the $2,500 US 100-watt. Duh. At the $70, I don't know if this is an introductory price or returning customer price. I want to say that Rectifier is higher and you get discount if you purchase them individually after the fact, owning other Ampbox products. Regardless, at $100 US or less, if you're looking to replicate the behavior, the controls of this real amplifier in a digital audio workstation environment, maybe with a bonus or two thrown in, it's kind of a no-brainer. And I think having those few bonuses like an overdrive or distortion section or that SC switch and some really nice impulse responses probably going to be enough for some people. The only problem is the 5150 line has been done to death. And if you already have a pretty decent sounding approximation of this amp, or you prefer the, classic 5150s or 5152s, then this is probably not going to be enough for you to jump ship. What I would say, once again, in parting, is that something needs to be done about the delay and reverb. I'm probably a little more picky about it than a lot of people are going to be, but it didn't jive with this amplifier more than any of the other ones so far. I think that's what really stuck out to me. And also because they're continuing to develop premium add-ons, and I think it's about time there is just a little freebie here and there to keep people hooked on the platform. Just my 2 cents. As for my own personal takeaways, I am so impressed by the green and blue channel, and Mercuriall did a great job of bringing those to life, obviously. It's amazing to me how capable those channels are on all ranges of the gain spectrum without sounding too anemic or too flubby or like, oh, you're not actually supposed to go there, even though it can. I'm not a huge fan of how the EQ reacts on any of the channels. They sound a little fake, for lack of a better word, mainly because they don't sound like the Marshall and Mesa tone stacks I'm used to in my head. And that's totally fair to the 5150 amps, but there is a sense of like, I don't actually have total control over a lot of things, and maybe stuff doesn't actually do anything audibly until you go really far, and maybe it doesn't sound so good anyway. But I feel like that is part of the design. It is just supposed to be turn everything at noon, tweak just a little bit, and you've got a good sound. But that is particularly why I'm not huge on the red channel, because yeah, it's great, it's awesome, it's like the perfect gain channel, and because there's no quirks, there's no oddities or huge low end that's overpowering that you got to deal with, or like a scratchy high end. There's no mojo there for me. And again, no fault of what Mercuriall was able to do here, but I don't know. I just don't get my rocks off on the 5150 red sound. What can I say? But overall, another great quality product. Who knows, it'll be enough for you, though. That is up for you to decide. If you've made it this far into the video, I can only assume you watch this channel for reasons beyond just the products that I showcase and review, or you've fallen asleep on autoplay, and that's fine too. Whatever, it all pays the same. But if you wondered why I fell off the face of the earth the past few months, everything's good. Don't worry. I have been positively distracted in all the good ways. But I have also been slowly working on what will be the largest video I've ever released on this channel. It should be the next one, and there should be 1 or 2 more after that before I unleash my final master plan that I've been working up to for this phase of the channel, if you will. This upcoming video will probably break the 2-hour mark, if I had to guess, and it's going to feature dozens and dozens of minutes of audio clips directly compared to similar audio clips of similar gear, of course augmented by my pseudo analysis. So I hope that becomes a really valuable resource for people, not just as a whole video, but hopefully it's something that can be viewed in chunks or certain sections if they're looking for something in particular. But is definitely the video that I've been working up towards for really years at this point. So hopefully it won't take that much longer, but do know it's going to be another probably few weeks to maybe even a couple more months before that thing is wrapped up. And I'm really excited to show you the things that follow soon afterwards. So thanks for your patience. And it's been nice to just kind of hack away at something little bit by little bit and kind of work at it at my own pace. But I appreciate you guys always coming back. When I do have something to say, it means the world. And we will see you next time. Bye.